Thank you, Madam Mayor. As to item A, unanimous direction was given by the City Council to negotiate a settlement on defined terms. If the settlement is reached, it would be approved by the court and then made public. On item B, no reportable action was taken. And on item C, no reportable action was taken. The City Council was not briefed on item D. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our special meeting. Now I will go ahead and bring our City Council regular meeting of August 20th. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mann?
Here.
Councilmember Sternquist? Here. Councilmember Yu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Here.
Mayor Fish?
Here. Okay, next, if everybody could please stand, we're going to have our invocation from Jerry Jambazian, owner of Wonder Cleaners and Draperies. They have been doing business in the city for 61 years and are located at 9136 Las Tunas Drive. If everyone could remain standing, our Pledge of Allegiance will be by Troop 161. We have Scouts Lucas Trent, Corey Wynn, Josh Sue, and Jason Yang. Troop 161 will be selling shaved ice as a campership fundraiser at the last concert in the park tomorrow night at Temple City Park. Please come out and support them. Thank you, Jerry.
Good. Let's pray, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, once again we come before you humbly asking for your guidance and wisdom for the decisions being made tonight. We thank you for a diverse city and the opportunities provided to us, such as the upcoming Moon Festival. We especially thank you for our new youth committee members. We hope it will be a great experience for them, and maybe someday they will be sitting in the big chair on the dais making decisions for our good. Father, it is easy to be discouraged looking at the national news, but we are comforted knowing that local city government is alive and well here in Temple City. We are saddened at the recent violence and shootings that took the life of CHP officer Andre Moya, who was laid to rest today. We continue to bring before you our military serving around the world, our firefighters, emergency responders, and deputies protecting our lives and property. I pray for a hedge of protection as they run to danger as we are running away from it. We ask this all in your name and for your glory. Amen.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, front and center. Forward march. Halt. Please place the flag of the United States of America. Please post the California state flag. All those in uniform, please salute. All those others, please place your right hand over your heart. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Ready, begin. Color guard, reform. Color guard, retreat. Halt. Color guard dismissed. You have to notice.
We're going to be moving on to item 5, ceremonial matters. Los Angeles County Public Works Eaton Wash Bike Path Design. We have Kenneth Yu, Los Angeles County Public Works, will give us a presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kenneth Hu. I'm with LA County Public Works. We're here to present the Eaton Canyon, well, it's actually Eaton Wash Bike Path Phase 1. The name in itself expects that there will be future paths that extend this bike path, but in this case, we're going from Longden Avenue to Rosemead Boulevard. So this project came about because in 2012, the County of Los Angeles developed the Bikeway Master Plan. And in the master plan, it identifies Eaton Wash Bike Path as a proposed Class 1 bike path facility. And in 2011, the City of Temple City also adopted a Bikeway Master Plan. And in their master plan, there's also the Eaton Wash is identified as a proposed Class 1 bike path. Finally, in 2017, the LA County Board of Supervisors passed a San Gabriel Valley Regional Greenway Network Implementation Plan. And in that plan, where they looked at all of the channels that are in LA County, they would like to turn them into greenways. And Eaton Wash is also in that greenway plan. So we've developed this project, which is almost entirely within your city. As you can see from the map, I don't know if you can tell the colors that brightly, but the orange area is entirely the City of Temple City. So we start from Longden and extend all the way to Rosemead, and the majority of that bike path is within the City of Temple City. There's a slight portion where we share jurisdiction with county and also with City of San Gabriel, but on those portions we're no longer inside the channel, we're actually on the street at Muscatel, and we come out on Las Tunas. So that's the background of the project. I'm going to turn over this presentation with the design details to Richard Shea. He's a landscape architect with the County of LA, and he will give you those details.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for me to present this project. My name is Richard Shea. I am a landscape architect with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. And this project, as Ken mentioned earlier, begins at Longden Avenue and extends all the way southward to Rosemead Boulevard. Majority of the bike path will be parallel with the Eaton Wash channel, except for one small portion, and I will describe that portion later on in this presentation. I've basically divided the entire project into 6 segments, and as we go through the presentation, I will talk more about the proposed amenities and the design for each segment. So this is a bike path project. I want to identify where the proposed bike path begins. It begins at Longden Avenue at the beginning of the project, and it follows the Eaton Wash southward. And we're at street crossings such as Garibaldi or Hermosa or Elm Street. The bicyclists and pedestrians will be basically going away from the channel and crossing the streets, and then re-enter the channel again. And so this will continue on all the way to Elm Street. That's over to the right of the screen. And the bike path will join with Muscatel Avenue and continuing on southward towards Las Tunas. And along this stretch, there will be a wayfinding sign guiding the pedestrians and cyclists on where to go to make the turns and to reconnect with the bike path at Eaton Wash. So,
Mr. Sheikh, may I ask you just a couple of simple questions? So you said each crossing, the bicyclists will have to exit the bikeway and get back up to the street level and cross?
Yes.
Like
yes.
using a traffic light, presumably?
Yes, yes. There'll be design safe crossings with striping and the necessary components for a safe crossing of the pedestrian and bicyclists as well.
And the second question is, when you say bike lane, presumably as a pedestrian, I can use that too, right, for walking and
Yes.
stuff?
Yes.
All right.
And I want to elaborate more on the actual design, the width of the bike path in the next
All right, thanks.
following slides. So on the left-hand side, that's where the bike actually deviates from the Eaton Wash and merge onto Muscatel Avenue, which is highlighted in red. And then it will go southward towards Las Tunas Avenue, and it will, safely bring the pedestrian cyclists across Las Tunas before they merge onto the bike lane within the channel. And then these are just some of the typical crossings at these streets, where we have amenities that will direct the safe passage and crossing of these surface streets. Okay, so this is segment 1, which is basically from London Avenue to Garibaldi. From the picture on the left, you will see that the bike lane was striped, and then to the left of it is an area that we're going to be designating like a pedestrian walkway. It's not going to be designated, but it's just something that we feel that it's important to have the pedestrian and the cyclist separated so that there's less chance of collision. And then along the channel, we will be introducing landscaping, draw tunnel landscaping, and all the landscaping will be irrigated. And at each entry point, we're also replacing the existing chain link fence with some decorative fencing to signal that this is the entry into the project. And then there will be several of these enhanced gateways, should I say, throughout this project. And then here's another plan, enlargement, and sections, cross-sections showing our proposed improvement. There will be retaining walls along the bike path to create more flat area, thus allowing us to create a wider pedestrian walkway in addition to the bike path, Class 1 bike path. And then here's another picture of basically this segment 1, which is between Longden and Garibaldi. And then we have these intermittent pit stop, what I could call them, which features bicycle repair stations and bicycle pump for those cyclists that needs a repair, and if they're not carrying tools or a bicycle pump, they can stop over here and fix the problem and get going again. And then we are also introducing some bioswale components in the project to basically capture the water and infiltrate and recharge the groundwater below, which is shown on the section to the left. And then in certain areas, we will have these resting areas where we provide a shade structure, some benches, site furnishing, and we will also be installing these doggy waste stations. And so there's areas where people walking the dog can dispose the doggy droppings in trash cans. And then there's also going to be a bicycle repair station situated in this area as well. And here's another section of the bike path featuring the landscaping and the bike path. And then over here is another entry point where we have some real estate that we could basically enhance the landscaping adjacent to it. And this is also visible from the street level. So when people passing by here, they'll see this enhanced space with a nice landscaping and just a welcome, gateway entry into the project. And then this is segment 6, which is the last segment of this project before we merge into the Rosemead Boulevard, and the bike path will connect to the existing bike path along Rosemead Boulevard. And these are just some images of the product that we're proposing to use. To the left on the plant palette, we're proposing to plant, quite a few trees and shrubs and ground cover, all of which will be drought tolerant, including California natives as well. For hardscape and site finishing, you can see some of the pictures of the entry gateway for the fencing. And then along the channel wall, we are also replacing the existing chain link fence into some ornamental type of fencing. And there's some bike racks and some image of the bioswale that we're proposing to install, including the wayfinding signs that will guide the bicyclists and the pedestrians from the channel through the streets and back into the channel again. And some of the pavement type that we're proposing to install, which includes the impermeable pavers. We're trying to be green and try to capture as much water as possible. So this basically concludes my portion of the presentation. And before I turn the podium over to Ken, do you have any questions?
Monsieur.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
lots of questions.
I have a few questions. I mean, it's wonderful ideas, but for full disclosure, I think the audiences know I do work for the same departments you do, and so is Councilmember Mend. So it's not trying to be just because it's our department's project. So it's a wonderful project. But speaking as a resident, however, I think there are some things that I think people tend to ask us about a bike trail behind their backyard. So it might be kind of early in your design, but how are you addressing security, lighting, access to the bikeway? I saw some gates and stuff, and also finally, who is going to maintain the bikeway?
Councilman Yu, I'll answer those questions. So the first one you asked about is security.
Right.
So as with the other bike path facilities that we've worked on, we've worked with the Sheriff's Department on the ones that are within Sheriff's jurisdiction. So they had mentioned that they would patrol on a routine basis. So they would stay in the streets unless there was a call that required them to enter the gates. At that point, they would go in, because right now, Sheriff's Department aren't equipped with bicycles, and sometimes the distances between the gates are extensive, so they're not planning to do any patrolling inside at this point in the early stages. Now, what I had seen is as part of the Greenway Network, which is handled by our Stormwater Planning Division, they had talked about some other patrol mechanisms, and I don't recall the name, but they wanted to develop a type of patrol unit that would just stay within the bikeways, but that is not something that we've worked out yet for this project. You talked
Second
about
question is lighting.
yeah, lighting. Lighting is a kind of a sensitive issue because some people don't want lighting behind their backyards. So right now we also are not planning to install any lighting. The bike path is intended to be used during daylight hours. So lighting is not included.
So will there be lighting so that at least at the entrance, so somebody is scaling the gate and you could see them? Or I don't know about street lighting at this point, and I didn't look at those
I think we
intersections.
might have had 1 or 2 light fixtures right at the gate entrances. Is that
Yes, yes. There's a possibility for it. It's just that right now we don't have provisions to install it, but it needs further discussion.
Right.
And who locks the gate?
Yeah,
And-
thank you.
And we're not intending to lock these gates because basically
That's not
So they're
What-
open 24/7?
let me go
Yeah.
back and show you what from slide 1, or is it 2? So I don't know if you can tell, there's like two different gate setups there. There's two numbers. So one is going to be a pedestrian gate. So in this case, it looks like there's three gates because they showed three swinging. One will stay open, the pedestrian gate, so that's where the bicyclists and the peds can enter, and vehicles cannot. And then there's going to be another set of gates so that our flood control vehicles can still enter and maintain the channel. So the pedestrian gate will stay open.
Stay open 24/7.
Yes, at all
I
times.
have a question. So does it intend on being open during daylight hours, or it's just gonna be open 24 hours, right?
The path is always open, but they won't be lit, so it's intended to be used during daylight hours. That's
Okay.
why no
So
lighting is
how are
provided.
you gonna avoid people loitering there if the sheriffs aren't gonna go in there at night or during the day? I'm assuming we will get loiter, people that are just decide to camp out there. I mean, do you have a plan?
We don't have a provision for that. What we've done is we've designed it to make it less likely that people will want to stay in there, and we have provisions for if the fencing on the backyard properties are not up to standard, we will replace the fencing between the property lines, so the LA County Flood Control District property and the homeowner's property.
Okay,
But
so
we don't have any way to prevent people from going into
Okay.
the bike path.
I have a question for Mr. Cook. I know there's a lot of homeless laws about removing people. Would the sheriff's department be able to remove, I don't wanna say residents, but remove people or their belongings from, if they decided to just camp out behind somebody's house?
Mayor Fish, that is a thorny question. But the way we
Well, it's
generally
gonna be-
deal
it's
with
gonna
it,
be asked.
so the way we generally deal with it, I can speak to our park system. So we have operating hours for the parks. Sheriffs do patrol, and if they do see loitering within the hours of operations, one of the things we may want to sit down with the county team is talk about hours of operations, and then give us then the ability, if a call is made, that we see somebody loitering at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever that time is, that they would have the ability to go in there. That would be one mechanism. That's how we address the issue at the park. Is it a struggle? Is it a challenge? Yes, but that's the way we deal with it in the parks, and that could be again. This is the county's right of way, so would there be their hours of operation? I mean, their property to enforce, but if we came to some kind of mutual agreement to understand, here's what they define as hours of operation, without loitering and those type of things, we'd have to walk through that between both agencies.
Okay. And do your other paths, are they unlocked?
Currently, our existing bike paths are on major channels, so like the San Gabriel River, the LA River, Rio Hondo, and those are always open, but they're also not truly the same situation. Those are huge flood control channels that have levees, so the bike paths are on the tops of levees, and the property owners are not right up against. It's not the same situation as we have here.
Okay, so are there going to be any special accommodations since they're so close to residents, besides the wall?
Right now, it's just the fencing, and if we had to.
I'm just asking, because I
Right.
have a feeling everybody's thinking the same thing, so.
That's a good question. So one of the options that we have, because we haven't gone and looked at every property, is that if a property that butts against the wall doesn't currently have a fence, actually, let me take a step back. The flood control district has a standard fencing along the property line, and in most cases, but we know of a few, the property owners have their own fence or block wall adjacent, so there's a double property boundary. There's our fence, which is the standard 5 or 6 foot chain link fence.
6 feet, I guess.
6 foot high, and then there's the property owners. Sometimes they have the dog-eared wooden fence, sometimes they have block wall, but there's usually a double barrier there. But there are a few that don't have anything. So on the ones that don't have anything, we have the option to install what's called there's a brand name, it's called Omega fencing, but they also call it post and panel support. So there are ones, they're usually like a vertical wire. They're a grid that they also use on the metro rail. So on some of the metro rail, you can see what omega fencing is. Those are usually just wires with a certain spacing that are not climbable. But there's also an option of putting ones that have a denser pattern so that you can't see through it. So that's a possibility on the properties that don't really have anything except for chain link between them and the channel.
And
We are
who will
also
make that
hoping-
choice between the fences? Is that the homeowner will choose, or?
Well, I think we'll have to deal with that on a case when we go into the design. Right now, this is just concept level.
And I would like to also add that by having this lush landscaping along the embankments, hopefully that will serve as a buffer between cyclists, pedestrian, and homeowners.
Okay.
Would you be looking, Mr. Shade, potentially plans that somewhat deter people from climbing, or just just because there's a buffer?
It's, well, first of all, we're not designing a prison.
Okay.
So, if the will is to climb it, they can climb it.
Okay.
But the hopefully is to deter people from making that wrong decision.
Okay. And finally, my question is on maintenance. This being a flood control channel, is the county's right away, I guess, the county will be responsible for the maintenance, routine maintenance of the bikeway?
Actually, on one of the slides at the end
Okay.
that I didn't get to, we talk about the maintenance responsibilities. So there will be some trash receptacles that are at the entrances and exits, and we would ask that the city maintain those trash and pet waste receptacles. The at-street crossings, we would be using something called a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. So it's a pedestrian-activated flasher. So when somebody's ready to cross, they press that. There's two flashing squares on each side that would alert the drivers that a pedestrian is crossing there. So because those are on city streets, we would ask that the city maintain those after they're installed. And the wayfinding signs that end up on your sidewalks to direct the bicyclists and the pedestrians, we would install those and ask that those be maintained by the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a
Some questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Regarding the crossings, what does the crossing look like on the surface of the street? These aren't the crossings that light up when they press the button. It's just a sign on the side that lights up for the pedestrian crossing?
Correct. There's not an in-ground flasher, and especially because a lot of these are pretty much on a bridge, those would be difficult to install and maintain.
Right.
So it's just on a post. There's a sign that says pedestrian crossing, and underneath the sign, there's two yellow flashing beacons on each side of the street,
Okay.
facing both directions. So drivers on both sides will see those flashers.
And the striping on the crossing, is that your typical pedestrian crosswalk striping, just bold white markings on the ground?
Right, I
or-
think they will be installing either the Continental,
Continental striping,
so.
yes.
Okay.
The continental striping.
Okay, all right. And regarding the community outreach efforts, since you mentioned that this, even though it predominantly goes through Temple City, but there are areas going through unincorporated, are you thinking of, I know on the public works side, we have groups that specifically do community outreach. Is that something you're envisioning partnering with us to do the outreach together, or is that something that the county's independently spearheading by themselves?
We would absolutely work with you. We would like to hold a meeting within the city of Temple City, because the other city and the county jurisdiction are really just on the peripheral. There's not much, I don't think it actually touches any residences, any homes that are or properties in the county. It's like this little sliver of sidewalk on Muscatel, which I really don't understand why that's our jurisdiction. So there isn't that much county, so if we hold it within the city, we can invite the unincorporated community and the other city as well. But to hold it centrally here,
Okay.
that meeting. Actually, I have on the schedule that we have not done the outreach yet because this is at concept level, and we would like to hold the outreach in the next few months.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that, because I think a lot of the issues that are on all of our minds, I think part of it will require a good amount of outreach so that people understand what exactly is gonna, well, assuming, we have no hard objections to it. I think a lot of the security related issues, the lighting issues, I think we might need something that people can visualize better than we maybe can at the concept level. I think at the concept level, I see enough of those types of drawings and working for the department to understand that there's certain limitations and the amount of detail you can show now. But I think a lot of the residents who are going to be asking questions and have concerns regarding developing this area is going to actually boil down to the details.
Sure.
So,
I was just gonna say that most of the details, I'm assuming, will be decided before we have any kind of community outreach?
No, we would want to have the community outreach early so that we
Okay.
could work out the details with the residents.
Oh, okay, all right. Mayor Mateo?
I don't really have any additional questions. My fellow council members have asked many of the same things that were on my mind. My only concern is, we're a relatively safe city. However, our biggest challenge is our burglaries. I think creating this type of open area, especially being open 24 hours with no lighting, could present some challenges and concerns by our residents in those particular areas. And so I would like to see maybe a little bit more addressed in that particular situation. I know we're not creating a prison, but at the same time, I think putting up a 5-foot chain link fence is not going to deter somebody from using this public highway to enter the backyard of someone. And so that's really my concern, and I think will be concern of many of the residents who are along this proposed bike path. So I would certainly like to see more input or more thought given to that as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Circus?
I agree. I think the education is essential to get people on board. And I was just going to ask our city manager if he could just give the people in the audience and those watching at home just like a brief, just a little synopsis of how this came to be. I mean, it's something definitely that you're not imposing on us. It's a partnership. So, Brian, if you would just share that.
Sure, very briefly. Mr. Hugh talked about some of the background of that as well. The county went and got some funding. We actually assisted the county, and the county is going to be using some of the regional Measure R money, about $2 million that we're going to essentially hand over to the county in a future agreement on the funding side, because it was something we didn't have a project that we could do ourselves on, and we had a list of it was a short time frame of those projects. So we're not directly giving the county money, but we're facilitating that process, and we're doing that in order to provide some of the levels of enhancements that Kenneth and the team have already presented to you tonight, but also see what they can, maybe where there's some trade-offs in that as well, and dealing with some of the issues that the council has addressed as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe a question for the county folks. This is not, can we actually link to this information or somehow include so more residents looking at our city website can perhaps look at some of the material provided tonight?
We don't have this on a website yet, but we can provide you the PowerPoint. Well, actually, you have the PowerPoint. We can provide more information if you wanted to create a website, or we could
Yes.
partner to create a website for this.
Yeah,
So
because I
we can
think
look into
in part it's helping the community outreach.
Sure.
And I think, I mean, it's a wonderful project. And again, I'm not saying because I work with you guys on the same side, but I think the residents needs to know what's going in there, especially those folks who live right next to it, right adjacent to it. We need to make sure we have their buy-in as well,
Absolutely.
so.
I have one question, and is that, do you plan to actually mail those residents that live right up against it, notices for meetings? And not just leave it up to them to,
When we do community outreach, we actually, mostly they're for road projects, we actually mail every resident that's up against the project, and sometimes
Okay.
we do a radius. So we
Okay.
do a direct mailer to invite people to the meetings.
okay, all right, excellent. I would, like Councilmember, you said, I would suggest putting it online. I think after this meeting, we're probably gonna get some phone calls and some inquiries, and they're gonna wanna see that information that just we have. So, you know, if you could maybe get it up as soon as possible, I think it would help all of us and maybe even help you with phone calls, because I know if I get phone calls, I'm gonna refer them to you. So I would just suggest you do it as soon as possible. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B, Youth Committee Member Appointment Confirmation. I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor Fish. Well, tonight I'm pleased to introduce this year's Youth Committee. They're the young men and women sitting right up here, if you can probably guess by now. They don't have their shirts on tonight, though.
I was going to say, they don't have the
Yeah,
shirts.
they probably haven't gotten them yet, the new ones. We have a lot of new members, so. Anyway, next time they come, I'm sure they will be dressed up. But just to give a little background, those of you who are not familiar with our youth committee, we've had them around now 8 years, somewhere around that. Every year it seems to ramp up a little bit more. This year we had 29 applicants. We had to fill 7 spots. One of those spots was a reappointment of one of our members to a new term. Each youth committee member serves a 2-year term, and they can reapply after those 2 years as long as they're still in high school. I want to thank, of course, our city manager, Brian Cook, our city clerk, Peggy Kuo, our assistant city clerk, Jillian Nunez, and our former members, Justin and Chloe, for their help in selecting this year's new members. It was a difficult choice. I think everyone who was on the selection committee would agree that if we could have 29 members on the committee, we probably could have 29 members. That's just how close and how great these young men and women are. But unfortunately, we have to select a few of them, and I think we have a good group. I know that they will do an excellent job this year. They're going to hit the ground running, so to speak, because this Thursday they're taking a field trip to Senator Susan Rubio's office to meet her and her staff and talk about what they do. And then next week they'll be visiting Assemblyman Ed Chow's office to talk with him about local politics. And so they're going to get a good education, and then hopefully, of course, they'll be able to follow and attend some of our meetings. And I know we didn't do it last year, but I would like to perhaps maybe institute maybe another mentor shadow program if all the council members are up for it, to maybe mentor. I know they love to be mentored by our current council, and maybe we can bring that program back in a little bit as well. So tonight we're going to present certificates of appointment to our new members. We have 6 new members, and as I said, we have 1 returning member. So we have 7 appointees tonight. Joined by them, of course, are current members Amanda and Kelly. Chase is not able to be here tonight. She's on vacation, I guess, getting those last few days before school starts. When do you guys start school? Next week? Next week already, yeah. So they didn't say that with a lot of enthusiasm. But
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
what time is your meeting on Friday, your field trip?
it's Thursday.
Oh,
I believe
Thursday.
it's Thursday. Yeah,
Okay.
Thursday at 9 o'clock, I believe, or they're going to meet here at 9 o'clock and then go over there. Yeah, so.
It's at the Foothill Transit Building,
We're going to be there Friday.
so we're gonna be there Friday,
Oh.
so it'd have been nice to have them.
Well,
come.
you know, as you
Yeah.
remember last year, you were kind enough to bring them to, I think it was a Foothill Transit meeting, and you know, I would like and of course, this is up to the committee members, but give them a taste this year, I think, of all the different things that we do as council members. You know, they see us up here, we make decisions, of course, that affect the city, but of course, the job also includes regional things as well, and I think that goes a long ways to their education and learning about politics and what can be done for the city. So, all good stuff. So, I think what we want to do is have them come up and introduce themselves first and tell a little bit about themselves. So, I don't know, Peggy, you want to direct it, or do you want to have them come up, and then we'll have some presentations, and I think we have a gift bag for them
Yes, we
too,
do.
right?
Yes, we do.
Here, why don't you want to take these, and
Sure.
that way we can. So why don't you guys line up and come on up and maybe introduce yourselves, and if you've already been on the committee, how long you've been on the committee.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Zoe Sue. I'm a senior at Temple City High School, and I'm so happy to say that this will be my 3rd year on the youth committee.
Hi, I'm Amanda Joe. I'm also a senior at the high school, and this is my 2nd year on youth committee.
Hi, I'm Kelly Durr. I will be a senior at Temple City High, and this is my 2nd year in youth committee, and I'm excited to help my city and my community for another year. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Clock. I am currently a junior at Temple City High School, and this will be my 1st year. I'm really excited to be here and make a difference here for our community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tuan Nguyen, and I'm a junior at Temple City High School. This will be my 1st year on the youth committee, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Hi, my name is Lauren Chi, and I'm an incoming 9th grader, and this is my 1st year in youth committee. I'm super excited to meet everyone and get to work with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sydney Liao. I'm a junior at Temple City High School, and this is my 1st year on Temple City Youth Committee, so I'm really excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Chen. I'm going to be a junior at Temple City High School, and this is my 1st year on the committee, and I'm really excited to work with everyone.
Hi, I'm Edmund Wong. I'm a senior at Temple City High School. This is my 1st year on youth committee, and I joined because I wanted to get a feel for local government and stuff like that.
Now, I hope the council will note that we actually have 2 male members this year.
Wow,
We
finally.
actually increased our male
Good
membership
job.
by 100%. So we're very proud of that, but they're all going to do very well, I'm sure. So.
Excellent. Well, before we do this, I just wanted to say thank you very much for having an interest in the community and in our government and what we do here. And I don't know whose idea it was, but I absolutely loved when we had like a mixer and you had to interview some of the leaders from our community. That was just, it was so great talking to you and explaining to you how things work and who we were, and I just thought that was great. It was really good, and it gave us a chance to get to know you. So please do that again, because it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for me to get out there and talk to people. I know that a few of us went, so it's nice to see a lot of those faces again.
One of the nice things from that meeting was that we were taking photos, and so it was nice because when we did the interviews, we had those photos to match them up with. So
Yes.
I think it was beneficial not only for the youth but also for us as well. And you guys have to remember that it works 2 ways. Okay, we were up here, of course, to lend our experience, but of course, as you know, we look forward to hearing from you as to what your ideas are and what you think is important for the youth of our committee. So congratulations on your appointment. It's not an easy thing to do, I can guarantee you. It's very, very difficult to make the cut in this situation, but there's an old saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. So I'll leave that with you guys, so to guide yourself for the coming years. So.
Well, it was great, because the other thing too, part of the interview was you got to tell us what your concerns were in Temple City, and that was really great, because it's maybe been a few years since I've been in high school, so things change, so it was nice to see what your concerns are, and maybe what we can work together on, making some differences, so, thank you. Yes, if everybody can join me.
Okay, so what we'll do is I'll call your name, and then we'll just come up there and get your bag and stand, we'll take some pictures, okay? So Lauren Chi, Lauren, come on up. Okay. Tuan Yuen. Emily Kwok. Catherine Chen. Sydney Lau. Edmund Wong. And of course Zoe. You guys don't get one because you're already on it. I think they're giving you, I don't think they're giving you a bag. You get a bag though. Say that for Chase. Say that for Chase. You guys get in the front, we'll get in the back.
Turn the bags around so the logo is facing you.
I'm just going to introduce Councilmember Sternquist, who has a presentation.
Wow.
Why don't you grab this? Oh, no. Do we have to take a picture?
Jerry will take one.
I'm thinking we have to get up again.
Well, I'd like to present this to all of you and to the city. It's from the Goldline Construction Authority, and it was a thank you to, not just me, but as president of the COG, they gave it to me because we had a historic unanimous vote that redirected $126 million
Right.
to the gold line so that it could be completed to go to Pomona. So they were very impressed that to get 28 elected officials to agree on anything is pretty remarkable. So I want to give it to you, to the city, and put it
Thank you.
someplace where everybody can enjoy it. So,
Do we want a picture with it?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unanimous. Good job.
Okay, this is the secret. It's gonna have a real big glare on it, so. Just tilt it a little bit as I'm taking a whole bunch of pictures. Yeah, just tiny tilt it, so we're gonna get one good one out of it. Actually, that's pretty good right there. That's good. All right, good job.
Now, they only need $500 million more to go further east and complete it to Claremont, but that'll be down the road.
Thank you. Going to go ahead and open public comments. The city council will now hear public comments regarding items not listed on the agenda. And we have Wyland Hamilton. Hi. I have your
All
calendar.
right, so
Your
we have
calendar.
our September calendars for the library, and there's actually two of us here today, myself and Tommy Bowie. He is our teen and adult librarian. Jing is back from her travels. She just is not back today, but she'll be back for your next meeting. So in September, we are continuing a lot of our regular programming. We are continuing the Intro to Art and Paint Night that was popular, and hopefully we're going to keep on going. Our agreement with the artist that has been working with us was just for 3 months. So that ends in September, but we are going to talk to him and see if we can continue that program. Let's see, I'm also going to be starting a baby story time at the very end of the month, kind of continuing on. So that'll be increasing our story times by 100%, but that will kind of allow more people to enjoy our story times in the library. For teens, there are a lot of programs happening. Every Friday there's a program. We're looking at needle felting, shrinky dinks, virtual reality, and basket weaving. And we also have our Teen Advisory Board meeting, which is the first Saturday of every month. And teens get an hour of volunteering time and get to talk to one of our librarians, Tommy, about the library and their ideas for the library, and help plan programs for the library as well. And then we also have a couple special events on Saturdays. On Saturday the 14th, we will have a Moon Festival celebration with some dancers, some martial arts demonstrations, and crafts. And then on Saturday the 28th, we will have Fiesta dancers. They'll be showcasing Fiesta dances from various Hispanic countries. And that is part of celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month. So lots of things in September, but also a little breathing time from summer reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
How did the lunch program go?
Oh, it
during
went
the
great.
summer?
It went great. We had, I don't have my numbers here, but we had at least from 20 to 40 kids every day that we served lunch. And it was a big number of the total lunches that we served. We had somebody from WIC come and talk to some of the families once, and I know that there was a lot of people who enjoyed it and wanted to return. So if the library is open next summer, I'm sure that we will push to have it return to the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Stafford? Steve?
Mayor Fish, Mayor Pro Tempore Chavez, City Council members, I listened to the presentation on the bikeway, and we really need to do a lot of outreach. There are things that I'm concerned with having a bikeway at Muscatel coming from that riverbed on a very narrow stretch of Muscatel. I mean, I've come out of the auto shop there getting my truck fixed, and you almost end up on the wrong side of the street because there's parking on both sides of the street. There's just a lot of problems there. To me, it seems it's going to be very problematic to have a bikeway going down that street. It may involve maybe widening that street to make it work. Like I said, I've been down that street myself, and it's very narrow, and I don't see it being that workable. I think that and the lighting that people brought up, there needs to be a lot more lighting on that. And I also know that they're homeless living on that riverbed. And we need to deal with that first and foremost, because that'll just make the problem worse for them. I've seen the homeless people on that wash bed around Broadway, and it's not something that's new. But we're going to have to contend with this and deal with it. I see some problems down there at night, and I think that there needs to be a lot more lighting down there and a lot more outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to go ahead and close public comments. Onto consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion as recommended unless removed for further discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you. Moving on to public hearing. Item A, we're going to continue the public hearing for ordinance number 191036. Amending Title IX zoning regulations, Chapter 1 of the Temple City Municipal Code, adopting Temple City zoning map, repealing the downtown specific plan, and adopting an amendment to the Temple City Mid-Century General Plan Update and Crossroads Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report.
See that we're just going to continue this matter?
Sorry, Mayor Fish. Yes, we're just continuing this manner to the
You mean
second
read that
meeting.
whole thing? Okay.
Yeah, the entire thing to the
We
second
need a
meeting.
motion to move, to.
Yeah.
Yes, we do, because it was set to a date certain. So we'll
Okay.
need to set to a date certain again.
Can I get a motion to move
Ma-
to?
Please.
Madam Mayor, may
Something.
I move to continue the public hearing to September 17th?
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Fish?
Yes. Moving on to item 9, unfinished business, none. Item 10, new business.
Mayor Fish, members of the council, Ms. Avery will present the potential MOU or memorandum of agreement with the San Gabriel Valley Coalition of Governments to participate in a regional coyote management implementation plan, a 2-year pilot project with the San Gabriel Valley COG, and talk to you about what that actually does entail. Probably some questions about what it doesn't entail either, as well. So, Ms. Avery.
Good evening, City Council members. So the City Council has been requested to consider entering into a memorandum of agreement with the San Gabriel Valley COG for participation in the Regional Coyote Management Implementation Plan. So as I'm sure you're all aware, the ongoing issues with coyotes. So the coyote is native to North America and most widely distributed throughout the southwestern U.S., Mexico, and Central America. Coyotes are a highly adaptable species and they thrive in urban environments alongside humans. So due to this adaptability, their native range is rapidly expanding. They've begun to appear in heavily urbanized areas throughout the United States and Canada, and have been spotted in places like Manhattan, Chicago, Toronto, and even riding the light rail in Portland. They've also been making their way further southward into South America. But since coyotes are apex predators, they mostly eat rodents and birds, but occasionally they have been known to attack livestock, house cats, and small dogs. So in efforts to exterminate coyotes or trap and release them have ultimately proven to be unsuccessful. Killing coyotes just seems to create more coyotes. Too many coyotes competing for the same resources in a small area leads them to take bigger risks and more often more likely to come into backyards and attack pets. So the current method of dealing with human and coyote interaction is education for residents, and that is what the coyote management plan is. So in response to the increasing concerns of human-coyote contact throughout San Gabriel Valley, the San Gabriel Valley COG created the Coyote Management Task Force, and the task force developed a coyote management implementation plan, which is based on the City of Arcadia's coyote management plan. So the whole agreement would allow City of Temple City to participate in the COG's Coyote Management Plan. It'll be a regional plan, and the COG would be implementing and maintaining and managing the plan on behalf of the city. And the COG will be responsible for coordinating community meetings, hosting workshops and conflict trainings, conducting youth outreach, education programs, sending mailers to neighborhoods with high coyote encounters, managing online regional coyote reporting hotline, and coordinating with other agencies on coyote management efforts. So the term length of the agreement is for 2 years, beginning November 1st of this year and ending October 31st of 2021. So the cost would be $20,000 for the 2 years. The first payment of $10,000 would be due upon execution of the agreement, and the second payment of $10,000 would be due July 1st of 2020. The city is expected to participate in any conference calls or meetings about the implementation of the plan and assist with providing meeting spaces for events and outreach efforts. And I believe that's all. Did you have any questions?
I have a question. Since COG is going to manage it, are they going to generate any kind of report for us?
That I am not aware of what
Do we know?
You know, you bring up a good point. I had that question too. It's like, well, how are we going to know whether this is working or not working?
Yeah, I mean,
So I would think that we would need some type of feedback
me too.
from them as to.
Especially like after the first year.
Yeah.
So knowing the staff at the COG and the executive director as well, I'm sure that it's not explicitly stated in the MOU, but
MOA.
she's MOA. Thank you. Her feedback is really strong, and I think we can talk to her about what kind of reporting matrix can come back. How many outreaches have we been doing in our community? How many those types of things. It's definitely an extension of outreach into the community. So I can talk to Ms. Creeder, the executive director, about that.
Brian, if I can, that same question came up with a few cities at the discussion when we were first bringing this item up, and because it's a regional issue, it's not just one city that's having this issue, and because the coyotes cross boundaries, you can have it in the morning in our city and the afternoon in another city. So they are going to provide a I think it's either a monthly or every 3 months report.
Yeah, I would think it'd have to be monthly, maybe even quarterly is fine.
To just let everybody, and we'll also be reviewing it at the COG meeting just to see how well the plan is being implemented, because it is a new plan. So definitely as we get responses back, or if there's any areas that you think you'd like more response from the COG, then most definitely bring it up, and I will take that message back.
Can I have a couple questions? Thank you. So what other cities are participating in this? And also, when they mention implementing like town halls, community meetings, workshops, will those actually be in Temple City, or is that to be determined? Do we request that? Because I noticed that part of our consideration is to provide places for meetings and things like that. So is that incumbent on us to arrange that? Who is going to coordinate that and have those meetings? Any thought process on that?
That would be the COG that would direct us as far as if they want to or need to hold a meeting in Temple City, that staff would then assist them with that. But we would need direction
we have
from them
nothing
first.
scheduled or
No.
anything like
Not
that.
at this time.
Can we insist on having?
Well, it would be nice to have at least one meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
at some point.
Do you know anything?
And I'm sure people from the public would attend and maybe have their own questions. That would be certainly a helpful event, a good event. You could even maybe tie it in with something else that we do. You don't
Right,
have,
that's what I
have
was
a
thinking.
standalone situation. And also, so do we have a feel for, I guess, is it all the cities in the COG that are participating, or is this on a
No.
as-needed
Does it say?
basis?
This, so, as Ms. Avery pointed out, and she attended a couple of the task force, or at least a couple of the task force meetings. I attended one with her. It was stemmed out of actually the city of San Marino as well, addressing the issues they were hearing from their residents as well. So I believe there's a total of 11 or 12, Ms. Avery? How many total cities?
I don't remember.
It's less than a dozen at this point.
And they're all in our general area?
San Marino, San Gabriel, Arcadia, are some that are around us that are participating.
I think there were concerns from some of the membership expressed concerns that, well, what exactly is $20,000 going to do? It's not going to eradicate coyotes, and that's what a lot of the residents want. They want the cities to take care of them and try and, be more confrontational with like PETA and those environmental groups, and that's not the position that the COG is, willing to take on. I mean, they look at things holistically and more globally than that. But I know there were some cities that felt that the plan, which was modeled after Arcadia's, was a little bit too benign, if you will, because it's a no-kill.
Arcadia's, was it benign?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's modeled after that plan. And some of the cities felt that they wanted more of a push to be able to eliminate the coyote, to be able to kill it. So it's kind
But
of.
that's not I don't believe a decision that can be made by a local government. That is a
So that's not a
state
position
and
that,
federal issue.
that
I
the
think.
COG will even try and take on. I mean, that's something probably the league would, I would imagine. I don't even know if the league would take that on.
Even there, there are some pretty strict limitations on when a coyote can be terminated, and it has to actually have attacked a human being. It's not enough that it attack a cat, a dog, a pet. In addition, a coyote can be trapped, but only if the property owner allows that coyote to be trapped. And then the coyote has to be released actually within a certain radius of the property where it's trapped. So you can't even trap them, take them deep into the national forest and release them. The legal limitations on what you can do are, as I say, pretty strict, which is, I believe, in part why the COGS program is what it is, certainly why Arcadia's is what it is, and why Glendale and Pasadena have programs substantially similar to Arcadia's.
I know a few cities felt that they wanted to join because they were very tired of having the phone calls consistently be going to the staff, and oftentimes residents didn't like the answer that, well, we're not going to go out and, shoot the coyote. So they felt that this was the best of both worlds, where, some of the pressures were off of the cities, and they could provide the same information and education to all the cities that were participating. And yes, they will come out and host a meeting at a city, a particular city, and invite even, the cities around you in case someone wasn't able to come out to that meeting. They could possibly go to a San Gabriel meeting in the future. So, I mean, it's new. But we did have a member, correct, Brian, on that task force? We had a representative from Temple City?
Ms. Avery and I
Yeah, both of
attended
you.
some of those meetings.
Yes.
Not all of them, but
They gave input as to what they would like to see in this plan. So I think as of our last meeting, there were possibly 13 cities that were on board.
Good.
So.
I have a question for Ms. Avery. Do you know if this is approved, do we plan on putting a link or something on our website so that residents can find out this information?
We currently have a webpage on the city website for information about coyotes if people
Right.
want to.
But we'll include all of this information, because it says that they're gonna be working on a incident reporting system and a hotline and everything, so I'm
Right.
assuming we're gonna put all of that on.
Right, can update the website.
Okay.
I have a question, Mayor. I'm very doubtful of a program like this personally. I've been tracking and reading up on coyote for long years, in part because I'm a cat lover. I have always have cats around my house. I've seen cats disappear from my house as well. And unfortunately, the coyote sighting been for long years. It was like once every few years, but now I see them like every week. There were times where I see them every other week. They walk up and down my streets, and I read about this literature, and I really doubtful what this will really do. I think I'm pretty educated about coyote myself because I read up on them, and they say, "Oh, go harass the coyote." I yell at them; they can't just look at me. And I mean, the only time they will run away from me is if I'm in a car at night with my headlights on them. That's when they start running away. But then during the day, I follow in my car. They kind of look at me. They run off to somebody's front yard, stay behind a tree, scratch. I mean, they were not concerned. So well, I appreciate the effort, but I'm not sure how even. So my question really is that while it's nice and good that we're doing something about it, because we're tired and sick of people telling us that their dog and cats are disappearing. How effective is a program like this? I mean, it's $20,000. It's a fair chunk of change. I mean, are we doing anything more than what we're doing currently on the website? That we're posting this information on the website. There's plenty of information. Type in coyote. There's plenty of information around. And they all repeat the same thing. Don't feed the coyote. Don't put out water. Keep your pets at home. I mean, anybody who wants to find information, the information is there.
I think
But
there's.
what are we doing more than
Yeah,
that?
I think there's something to be said for maybe, since it is a brand-new program, maybe taking a step back and seeing how it goes, because it doesn't mean you can't join the following year. And if those are the concerns, seeing how successful it is the first year. I mean, I like having something in place where we can direct our residents to say, look we're doing something. We're doing more than just saying, blow a whistle and jump. But I mean, if that's a concern, I don't think it's set that you can't join the second year. So I mean, that's just a thought also. And I wasn't at the planning meetings, but I know there was a lot of input put in from various members of that task force to see what they would like in that plan and what the services were. So I don't know, Brian, maybe we can have a COG member come and answer those questions at our next meeting if you'd like.
Sure.
If
I'm sorry.
if that makes everyone more comfortable.
This is my own opinion.
And I kind of, I'm along with you, but we're already a member of COG, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so shouldn't this be like part of like what we get from our membership? I mean, because all they're really providing that I can see from this agreement is information.
And an additional staff member to do.
Well, how many calls do we get a week regarding coyotes? I mean, is it taking a lot of our staff? They're still gonna call here, so somebody's gonna have to take that call, and then rather than talking to them, they're just gonna direct them somewhere else. So somebody's still gonna take a call.
But do they call us, or do they call the sheriff?
I don't know who they call.
It's a mix of calls, but we do get a certain, I don't know lately how, to quantify it, how much it is. But, we will get the calls here occasionally and sometimes online as well through our online portals.
I mean, to me, it's not a lot of money, but it is a lot of money depending on what we get from it, and if it's a good program and it really provides good, useful information that we would not otherwise have access to, or our residents would not have access to, then I guess it's worth it. But I don't know. It just seems like at this point, we're doing what we should be doing, in short of the state or somebody saying you can do more, there really isn't a whole lot more that we can do than what we're doing right now. I mean, unfortunately, or, you know, we can't kill them, we can't trap them, I mean, you know.
Councilmember Mann?
We need the Roadrunner in town, I think is what we need to do.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Fish. Yeah, I like Councilmember Sternquist's idea of maybe having someone from the COG who would be able to answer a lot of our questions, because I think I like the concept of it, the whole consistent response across a regional scale. I think that's a good idea in principle. I have the same concerns as Councilmember Yu in terms of kind of where exactly our expectations are with respect to how are we measuring success, you know, what are some of those, are we using metrics, is it a qualitative measure of assessing? Like, I think somewhere in the agreement it talks about they'll focus on areas with high coyote encounters. Like, my question would be, do we fall under that category? Are we not? Because I figured we got 2 flood control channels that go through our city and they're known to travel through those. But then you have cities near the foothills that also get not just coyotes, but bears, mountain lions, you know, all sorts of wildlife. And they mention in here, one question I have is, they mentioned the COG will conduct youth outreach and education programs for local schools. So I guess my question is our school district aware that this is part of that outreach? Should they be involved in that conversation, or at least be aware that this is what the COG is trying to do? Maybe have someone on the school district side also, because with a lot of parents with young children, they probably have the same concerns that we hear a lot from our residents regarding, you know, coyotes. So I think getting them involved is a great idea. Further down the line, I think in terms of where we can maybe contribute to the spread of information is, we have a neighborhood watch program with people that go there. Maybe we can suggest
That's a
to,
great place for it.
That is a great place
we
for
just
it.
bring that information, like, once we kind of get the information down to where we distill it down to the essential stuff that's important, maybe bring it to that forum, and we could talk with, you know, the folks who manage neighborhood watch and see if we could make that one of those topics that they cover there. So so I agree in principle, but yeah, I appreciate the suggestion to maybe have someone from COG answer some of the questions that we have.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions? No?
No, I mean, just how effective it is. I mean, it's
yeah.
a great idea, but
I don't think we'll really know until it's up and running, and I'm sure it's going to morph as it develops further and as cities participate and express concerns, and I'm sure it's going to be more work than they even initially thought.
Oh, it's going to be.
Yeah. So I'm sure that it'll continue to grow, and probably as cities express what their needs are, it'll develop further.
You know, I really like the suggestion with getting the school district involved. I live about a block away from an elementary school, and I also live at the end of a block, and at least 5 times I've had a coyote in my front yard just because I live on the end of a block. School's gonna be starting, you know, and I think residents feel like they can't, they don't have any outlet. I mean, we always tell them the same thing, that we can't do anything. They call us and we tell them we can't do anything. Sheriffs are not gonna come, nothing's gonna happen. The only thing I will say that I do like about this agreement is that they're gonna keep track of the incidents. I would like to know if there's, you know, more incidents. Is there more? Is there less? Are they in certain areas of the city more than other areas? That I don't know. I just kind of hear on social media. I hear once in a while somebody will complain to me, but it kind of goes in waves. Sometimes I hear about it a lot, and sometimes I don't hear about it at all. And I really don't know. So that I can appreciate that. But I agree. I think it would be beneficial to have a member of the COG come.
We can do that.
And do that. So
So
Brian, can we do that?
Sure, you can just continue it and just continue the item.
Okay,
You don't have to do it to a date certain. I'll just,
excellent.
and
Let's
I'll
go
just
ahead.
inform the council.
I'm sorry, is that the consensus of the council?
Do we need a,
It'd be helpful if you,
need a motion about that?
A
I was
motion and a,
gonna say, before that, we should check to make sure there's no public comment tonight
Oh.
on the matter.
oh, okay.
And then, yes, a motion and second would be helpful on that. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and, before I do that, any more additional council comments? Gonna go ahead and open public comments? Close public comments?
Mayor Fish, I would make a motion that we continue this matter to a future council meeting after arrangements have been made to perhaps have someone from the COG come and present it.
Second.
Give us a presentation.
Can I get a roll
Second.
call, please?
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Yes.
Mayor Fish?
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move on to item B, consideration of an invitation to visit Temple City's sister cities, is it Wanlin?
Wyland?
Wyland?
Hualien.
Hualien County. Hualien.
Mayor Fish, members of the council, before you tonight in the staff report, we went into an MOU about us, creating a relationship with the Hualien County, and they during Mayor Mann's time as mayor, and then now Mayor Fish, a invitation was extended as public officials to come to Taiwan and visit under an official visit. The city attorney is taking a look at the issues related to public expenditures. Everything is fine on that front. The question for you tonight is how you would want to approach that, and if you would want to accept the invitation potentially, and how you would want to go about that. What you can't, the one thing that's pretty clear on that is that in terms of we would need to either personally or using the city's travel budget would have to spend that money. We can't accept travel arrangements from that other entity. That was one of the issues that Mr. Murphy had to research, and that's why it's before you tonight. And it's out-of-state travel, it's out-of-country travel, and usually the council weighs in on if they want to do that in a public session. So,
Brian, can I ask you, when you say that expenditures are okay with our city attorney, you mean it's okay to approve travel to go international?
yes.
But it's never been a precedent in our city to do so, right?
The Fair Political Practices Commission has specifically said that travel to a sister city promotes a government purpose. Doesn't say that you have to do it. It says that that's a legitimate expenditure of city money if the council decides that you want to do it. As briefly mentioned in the staff report, there are also situations in which registered 501c3 nonprofits provide some of the funding for a visit to a sister city or funding for other types of travel. But primarily what I saw in researching the FPPC situations were questions about the city funding travel for either elected officials or staff or both in a sister city relationship. And as I say, the FPPC has said over and over again that that is a legitimate expenditure of city funds if that's something that the council wishes to spend funds on.
Have we ever spent funds for, in the past or recently, to have any of council members travel to Australia?
No, in fact, under my information or my knowledge, every time a city official has gone to Australia to visit our sister city, they have paid their own way. I did, and I know Nan did, and in the past, I can't recall the city ever paying for a city official to attend our sister city.
Mayor Pro Tem, when you or others visited a sister city, I mean, I imagine you would bring some gift or something from here, and I think that's probably
we
legit.
took a plaque, a presentation to present to their city council.
I think that's would be definitely in my mind, legitimate
Yeah.
expenses. I think, was that provided by the city?
That was just
Like-
provided by the city, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, we took trinkets, like things
Yeah.
that said Temple City on them, like T-shirts and water bottles, but we didn't take. And then, I know in my case, we stayed with residents, with private
Right,
residents.
right, right.
And we brought them a little thank you just from us. But as far as the city, no, we didn't get anything from the city at all.
But I know like you can accept meals correctly, like meals would be fine also, and hotel arrangements. Is it all inclusive?
All inclusive on travel for, again, for a legitimate sister city relationship, which, you know, is why it comes to the council to make a policy decision.
So, Ms. Murphy, I just want to be clear on what I'm hearing. So, you're saying that the members of the group that go there can accept their invitation to dinners and stuff? Is that what you're saying, or?
No, I apologize. What I'm saying is.
No, I may not hear it
Yeah,
right.
I apologize. If it is the will of the council to spend city funds
Oh, I see.
in any amount, whether it be for air travel or hotel or reimbursement for meals, much like travel to a conference here in California, international travel for a sister city purpose is a legitimate public purpose under California law. That's the extent of kind of the legal analysis.
Can I ask a question? Why November? Why such short notice? Is there something significant about visiting only in November? I don't.
Maybe I
what the
could,
letters
maybe I
designate.
could shed a little bit of light. I don't think they were explicit about it, but my understanding is November works better for them because they have a presidential election in January. And so,
And a festival, right?
Yeah.
Festival that's similar
Right,
to
but
our
but I think
In
that
November?
November.
but I think the main thing for them is, I guess, in their political system, things get really crazy in the month or two preceding a presidential election. And so that was also kind of the reason why they scheduled when they came over for the signing of the MOU, they scheduled it in that particular time because they were also running into, I guess, the equivalent of their congressional elections.
Is November also a time when the weather's a little milder, not as hot and
That's true.
say,
That's
is
I
it-
didn't
I
even.
don't know
It,
how
it
to-
is.
Humid.
It
Isn't
is. Yeah.
February-
Right now it's pretty. It's like subtropical weather, basically.
And I seem to recall when we entered into this agreement, there were some political issues that to be dealt with in this area. That there was a faction on this side and a faction on this side.
All I can
Vince,
remember is
did
someone
you-
couldn't come over,
Didn't
remember?
you say
Yeah,
something
somebody
about
couldn't,
that,
they
Somebody
didn't allow
couldn't
certain
come,
people
right.
couldn't. Yeah, I forgot, yeah, some people.
Yeah.
And so how long would this be for, and what is the agenda? Because it's the report just basically says that to experience what they have to offer and to strengthen the friendship between the sister cities, but, other than that, I mean, is there a certain agenda, or is it a 1-week trip, 2-week trip? I guess that's to be determined, I don't know, but.
Yeah,
But-
if I could maybe speak on
Yes,
that matter,
please.
at least my understanding is, because I asked them the same question when this was being brought up, and I said, well, yeah, can you give us something more specific, like an itinerary? Because I kind of knew what we as a council would expect as part of that, and I don't know the reasoning behind this honestly, but they said, well, we first need to know if there's any intent of anyone from the city to come. If there is, then they can work on a specific agenda and work with us on that. So again, we have our ways of that we will prefer to run things, and others may have their own style. So I think for tonight's discussion, though, I think really part of what maybe we need a better understanding on is, one, is there anyone on council who's interested in going? Second, obviously, is with regards to the public expenditures, or whether it's borne by the city or borne by the individual? I
Do
just
we
heard
have
some
any sense of
comments on
what the fees would
precedents.
be?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
What are the costs? I
what-
mean,
do we have a
how much does it
ballpark?
cost to fly there, and what are the costs of hotel? I
In,
mean,
in November, so if we went now, the tickets are real expensive, like in the 1,300, 1,400
But
range.
that's summertime.
In
For
no,
the
in no,
flight.
yeah, in November, it would probably be between 600 to 800 round trip. So it's like half
That's it?
half the
That's
price.
cheap.
It's a low season, yeah.
That's, yeah, November is also considered low season.
And we would pay hotels
And hotel.
also?
Well, that's to be
Well,
determined.
That's to be
I
determined.
mean, that would be,
I mean, if you were there, that'd be part, that's
Well,
inevitably
obviously,
part of the
gotta go, yeah.
expenses, yeah.
Okay.
They mentioned potentially a 1 week itinerary where, so if you recall, the last time they were here, you know how they brought a pretty large delegation? Each of them was the
That
head of some
wasn't, that wasn't
department.
just to visit us, they had a,
Yeah,
an
they had,
event
yeah,
that
so
they-
what
They kinda
I,
tied it together.
yeah, what I was getting at is, I think from their standpoint, they want to essentially give any delegation that we would send a tour of all of their different government functions, their departments, their school systems, etc. So, I mean, I understand if part of the thing that we would like as a council is to request for more information, because I would like to request that too. But I think part of what they're asking is there even an interest for anyone here to go? If there isn't, then obviously this matter would be put to rest immediately. Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily say is there an interest, because I think there's always an interest, especially with a community that we have entered into as a sister city. There's certainly an interest. I think it's more along the lines of, you know, what is the reason we're going there? What is the agenda? How much is it gonna cost? So I think, for me anyway, to make a more better determination, I would like a little bit more information about that before just saying, well, yeah, let's send 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. Personally, in November I couldn't go anyway, and so I would be, if it were at that time, I certainly would not be able to go. So, but you know, others might want to. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would go either in November, but I think it's the fact that we did enter into a sister city relationship with them, and I think now that they extend an invitation to us, I think we should at least explore not having those questions that Mayor Pro Tem brought up. You know, what would the itinerary be? How much would it cost? Maybe perhaps as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's the travel expenses paid for by the individual person, I don't see any reason why I cannot support that, because this is a legitimate sister city relationship. And
I'm sorry, I missed the part, if it was paid by the,
by the
person going.
person going.
paying for their own travel.
It's just like before,
Yeah.
But of course, just like before, if we were to bring trinkets and memorabilia, I mean, that should be paid for as being an official, should be paid for by this, from city funds. So I would be for at least exploring the next step, and maybe there are other folks in the community who would like to go with not just the council.
Yeah. Well, I would, first of all, be very interested in going.
Yeah.
But I would want to pay my expenses, all of my expenses. But we might consider inviting somebody from sister cities because they are the experts in sister cities. I mean, obviously they have to pay for themselves, but they're the ones that are the expertise in this field. I mean, we have gone to Australia, but we don't necessarily know how the organization works. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well,
I mean,
that's why I brought up the fact that really what is the purpose and the agenda here? If we can define what that is, then I think that'll dictate who should be the proper representatives to send. If it's truly to develop a sister city program similar to what we have with Hawkesbury, Australia, then I think that will dictate who should probably attend. If it's just simply, or let's say, the kind of feel I got when they were here was more of a cultural and maybe even commercial type of partnership, where maybe someone associated with our commercial businesses should maybe attend or something like that. So it really, to me, depends on what it really is, the purpose and agenda, and what do we want to accomplish out of this whole thing. And so I think that still needs to be fleshed out. And again, it doesn't give us a whole lot of time if it's only going to be in November. So that's kind of a quick turnaround for me, especially for such a visit. You kind of want to do a little bit more planning. Maybe we should look into it further and keep it on the burner and see what we can do. I think it's a good idea at some point, but again, who's going to go, who's going to pay for it? Those are all things that need to be fleshed out with more time and information.
I don't know if we have time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we can't do it in November, maybe if November is a good time, maybe next November or next year sometime. I don't know. I mean,
if I could make a suggestion is, maybe tonight we can, I think there's consensus that the individual persons who are going should pay for their own expenses. I think we all agree on that, since there's clearly a precedence that we can base that on. And perhaps we can provide maybe a conditional response to them saying we have an interest in going, with a condition that we would like to have a specific agenda set up. And I would actually suggest that we spearhead that. We dictate
What we want.
what we want, and not leave that up to them. But at least they know that there is an interest in going, so that they can at least be prepared on their end to do what they need to do. And then when we get our stuff together in terms of what we want to, I completely agree. And
I agree that maybe then throw that open to members of our current sister city program. Maybe they might want to go. Especially if they're going to pay for it. The city's not going to pay for it. Anybody can go. Really.
Yeah, and of course, if the time doesn't work out, then we tell them, hey, we're sorry, this is too short notice. Then.
Well, is there
then
any
we
reason
move
we couldn't wait until next November? I mean, that gives everybody, them and us, some time. I mean, what's the rush to go this November?
There's no rush. It's just that the timing of the invitation is now, so that's why. If they're inviting us, then we should at least respond.
Oh, no, I agree. I think we should respond that, yes, I think it's a great idea. We just have to work out the details. I mean, that would be the nice professional way of responding.
Right.
And then certainly they consider it. And then maybe extend the same offer to them, as we would like them to come to us.
Right.
Because they really haven't made an official visit to Temple City, other than when they were here, they came.
Right.
Did you want to make a statement? Because I have a question. but go
A
ahead.
very brief statement, just that the staff report and presentation was a bit unorthodox in that Councilmember Mann was a part of that. But I do believe we're getting to the point where you're beginning to get consensus and make a decision, so it would probably be proper to open it to the public first and then bring it back to make a decision, rather than continue to talk about what direction we want to go. Just see if
Okay.
there are public comments
So
first.
do we have two things we need to decide? We need to decide that, and then if we're going in an official capacity? Is that because I have questions about that.
Why don't we have the public speak, and then we can bring it back with what
Okay.
your options will be.
Did we have any more council comments? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it to the public for any. Steve?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Something just came to mind because in reading through some of the material that I've gotten from them, they have another 5 sister cities. We're not the only rodeo in town. One of them is Everett in Seattle, Washington, or in that area. It might be prudent to contact them to see what they do through them. Is this strictly business, or do they have exchanges? I think it's a great idea to visit Taiwan, But I think, you know, that way we would have a little more information to provide to Taiwan if we found out what they do with some of the other sister cities. So, just a thought.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I'm going to close public comments.
Okay, as the council went, it sounded like there was consensus on the funding. So it would seem that the issue now is there interest in arranging a visit by council members and others who may pay their own way? And if so, then direction could be given to respond to that end, and further direction could be given to investigate what kind of an agenda might be needed, and then finally direction could be given as to what kind of time frame you as the city council would like to see in terms of a visit. Those would be the three things I could see before you.
I have a question.
Pam?
One of the things was saying to go in our official capacity. What exactly does that mean?
That would mean as representing the city of Temple City.
So that
as
just means to go and be able to represent the city, correct?
you are a city council member representing the city as opposed to a private citizen.
But I think if we're telling council members that if they're free to go, if they pay their own way, and if they want to go in November, then why can't they just go? I mean, the people who chose to go to Australia went when they wanted to go, and we didn't sit here and debate what time they should go. I mean, I think
part
for
of
me
it
that.
was because we didn't go in our official capacity. We didn't go as representatives of the city. I mean, we
No,
were
I mean, but
representatives.
even the articles when Tom came back said Tom went as
Right, right,
mayor.
right.
I mean, so, no, there was definite relationship
Yeah,
that
they
there
know.
was
who we
representation.
are.
They know.
They
So,
know.
no, they did go in official. You can't get away
You think?
from that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was, they're well aware of that. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, if
I would
you wanted
second
to
that.
go, or you wanted to go, I think, and you're paying your own expenses, what's the difference between going with the Australian Sister Cities group or this one? I think there's no difference.
Well, I think the only difference is, I think, just the nature of the sister city dynamics. With the Hawkesbury, Australia, we have that history, we have that relationship that's already built up. We're not quite there with Hualien County.
But it had to
They
start
want to
someplace.
Yeah, no, and I agree. They want to develop that, and that would be, this is the first step in developing that and moving it forward. There's no question about that. But you're right. I mean, when Sister City didn't get our authority to go, they didn't need our authority to send people over. But it was a little different because they already had those contacts. And as Nan pointed out, even though we were elected officials when we went, we weren't really there to represent the city, and we didn't have an agenda to pursue, to further that relationship. That wasn't the purpose of going. It was more just as a friendship, just as a, to find out personally what it is.
Plus, we wanted to go to
Yeah,
Australia.
going to Australia, so.
But I think it's the same difference, really. I mean, it's because.
Well, it is, but I mean, you're not, it is and it isn't, because like I said, we're not going necessarily, or we didn't go to Australia necessarily with an agenda on behalf of the city. We were elected officials for the city at the time, but I wasn't there, like, I didn't get called to the city council to present any kind of agenda or any type of request or anything like that. That wasn't part of the trip. So it was more getting to know the people that are involved over there and just sightseeing and having fun. Yeah.
If I may say, I kind of view this, if we do go in November, to me it's more of a fact-finding mission. Just like Mayor Pro Tem said, we don't know them very well. And like, if we were all honest with each other here, there's obviously a little bit of skepticism with working with an entity that could very well be very different in terms of how they think, how they process, how they understand the sister city relationship could be fundamentally different than how we imagine it. And so my perspective is, if we find out sooner than later that if we're not on the same page as them, or if there is some fundamental reason that this is not gonna take off to where we want it to go, then I'd rather us not kind of dwell on that issue for too long and say, you know, why are we trying to prolong this? So that kind of gives us sort of like like I said, like a fact-finding recon mission. I think still the greater longer-term goal is to establish, like what we were talking about, a very specific agenda, specific milestones, specific agents. Because like let's go back to how the MOU came about, right? Like I know one of the concerns that was brought up during that process, which I share, is that we had this sort of middleman, nonprofit, whatever you want to call them. And I think our goal should be, you know, we should be talking to the other government agency directly and not through some middle person. At least to establish sort of what our understanding is. And then we kind of start looking at, you know, we can start kind of building off and learning some of the lessons from our Hawkesbury sister cities. Okay, well, if we're okay with the other government side, then how do we now start developing sort of I'm just going to call them the grassroots, because that's truly what you guys are. You guys had volunteers who dedicated enormous amounts of time. A lot of your heart and soul went into this. I could see that from the program. So can we get to that point, right? So I'm all open to the I don't want to be cynical about things, but like let's just be real. If we end up in a situation where we're not comfortable with the way it's going, then we say we tried. But I want to stay optimistic and hope that at least in the initial visit we can at least get a better feel than simply gauging it off of the folks who came over here last year.
Correct.
I think that was, even for myself, was a bit of a skewed perspective in what they were trying to do, because it got kind of mixed with some other stuff as well. Yeah, so that's sort of my perspective. Yeah, this official capacity thing. I won't say I quite understand the Taiwanese side of the politics that well, having never lived there. But they do think differently than we do. I think if I were to try to summarize it, I think they're a lot more formal in a lot of what they do. And I think, I think the way you were I don't want to mischaracterize like what you and Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor, when you guys went to Australia, but I imagine it was a bit more casual, right? That the environment you were, yeah. So what I would expect is, even whether we go in an official or unofficial capacity, I think if any of one of us were to meet with delegates or members of the Hualien government, they would take that in a very formal manner. That would be my guess.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just by
I
their
made some
visit
festivity or
that came, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
they take that kind of stuff very. They take the ceremonial matters like
especially
very
mayor
seriously.
from United States, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
A
I mean,
mayor,
they,
yeah.
well, look at all the people they brought with them when
Exactly.
they came. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that was not what I was expecting. Okay, do we have any additional comments?
So what have we decided? Have we?
We've decided, or at least there's consensus that we heard, that if an individual council member wishes to go, that they will be paying for it themselves, that you have no problem with one of your colleagues going. And if they go and express themselves as I'm here as, council member, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor X, you're okay with that too? That'll be fine. We don't really need a motion for that. That's.
Oh,
Okay.
we don't need a motion?
No, not on that.
And if somebody should be going and
And it probably want to inform
Correct.
everybody that you're going and all that kind of thing.
yeah, if somebody should be going, perhaps bring some business cards with Chinese translation on them, and so
And I
people
can
know who
circulate
you
in
are.
one of my reports that,
Yeah.
Don't we have
Mayor
those already?
Fish or.
I don't know.
Yeah,
if
we
it-
do.
You guys, we all have.
Yeah, we have those.
Oh.
Yeah, we do.
I'm gonna let the skeptics go first. And bring back the info.
How long is that flight? Is that a long
I
flight?
think it's 13 hours.
I think it's more like, going there is probably more like 10 hours. Coming back maybe 9.
10's reasonable.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
10.
piece of cake.
Okay.
It's up there.
It's about 10 hours to Taiwan.
Alright.
I've never been there. I only stopped at the airport.
At the
That's why I kind of knew. Coming back, you're with the prevailing wind, so it's a little faster.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need anything.
We heard direction.
Excellent. Okay, moving on
but-
to item 11, update from city manager.
Mr. Forbes left the building, but want to thank Mr. Forbes and Mr. Kair, and thanks to the community and the businesses for the disruption last week while I was on vacation with repair some of the treatment on Rosemead Boulevard.
Yeah, you made a good.
I timed it perfectly.
Yeah, you
So
did.
thank you. You'll be still see some road work going on, some patches, and some drivers decided to go on the treatment earlier than we would like them to. And then striping will happen as well. Some of the questions we've gotten about striping in the past are going to be addressed on Rosemead as well going forward. Some of the challenges on the bike lanes, from our members, members of Bike SGV and others have asked us some questions on some of the market.
They're not putting back the raised striping, right?
Generally, in some areas we will, but other areas where it's more well-traveled, where Mr. Kyrie is making a decision on some of that
It didn't seem to last very long.
in some areas it did, in some areas it was better, so we're gonna, Mr. Kyrie is kind of making that decision along with Mr. Forbes as they're working with the contractor. So, we should be on time, and we'll definitely be on budget. So, last concert is tomorrow night. I know some of us will be at the county sheriff Contract Cities event at the Arboretum tomorrow, but last concert will be, tomorrow night. Thank you to all the park staff, Mr. Lawson, everybody who's had a great summer. I know I've been helping out a little bit and over there, but they've done good work, and I appreciate all their work going forward. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Update from city attorney.
Briefly, as we've reported in the past, we're monitoring the apparent truckload of housing bills that are making their way through the legislature. And when the legislative session is finished and the governor is done signing or vetoing bills, we'll have a full report on the housing bills. But recently, Assemblyman Ting sponsored a bill that would actually change the Surplus Lands Act to provide more requirements of putting surplus lands out to affordable housing providers. Currently, that's one of the options. It becomes a much favored option under his bill if his bill's adopted. So not only are we seeing housing bills that directly go to housing and land use authority of local jurisdictions, but we're seeing housing creep into things that otherwise would be totally unrelated. So as I said, full report probably in the November timeframe as we get ready for any of these bills to become effective January 1. And obviously we'll be working with your planning staff on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13, council reports regarding ad hocs or standing committee meetings.
No.
Anyone? Just wanted to say that the school district and city standing committee, we will be having a meeting on September the 6th. Finally. Finally, yeah, so we have that already set up.
Is there a proposed agenda?
No, not yet.
Do you know who the standing committee members are from the school?
From the school, it is Donna Giorgino and Matt Smith. Item 14, council items separate from city manager's regular agenda. Councilmember Yu.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one simple item. Last time we talked about a parcel tax and the potential timing, perhaps it's in March, but also heard that through some rumor mill that this fire district may be floating about. Do you
They
know?
are.
So I don't know what timing is that. Do we know?
Brian, you
It,
wanna say, report on that?
I can tell you the brief information that I'm aware of. So they are doing a inquiry to the public about how, and some surveys asking the community about how they feel. I've heard that they have been reaching out to contract cities and others. They haven't reached out to our city yet, officially asking them not about a tax yet, but having them educate us about the structural challenges they're having, which I think is, long and short of it, is potentially a prelude to a tax. If that goes on in March or November, I'm not sure. I'm sure they have some assistance, as we have done in the past, looking at our polling and other things as well to gauge that. But I have not gotten you've all gotten, I think last week was one, or if it's in your mailbox now, a letter from the county fire department just saying, here's what we do, but nothing related to the actual funding request yet.
But
Yeah,
I
but
think
it was
that's
like
leading up to it.
I read that. It seemed like, by the way,
Yeah.
expect something a little bit later on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, I think it's just good for us to find out timing, because it may have some potential, because we may not want to be on the same ballot as they do.
Yes, and
It's
also
interesting, because we never did anything for the fire. It's all of a sudden we get something that's
Yeah.
for the fire.
And
the other issue with that, not that if I just take one bit of the time, the AQMD tax at this point is not going forward. They needed special state legislation because of the cross-jurisdictional issues related to that issue, and my understanding is at this point, as the end of the legislative session ends in Sacramento, that is not happening, at least during this legislative cycle.
And I just wanted to tell you also, the Council of Mayors, we had a meeting maybe 2-3 months ago, and Eric Garcetti was there, and also the Chief Osby was there, and basically it's all coming from the Malibu fires and the other very, very catastrophic fires, where the fire department is just finding out that they just don't have the equipment.
Right,
And if
right,
they
right.
do have it, it's very outdated. So that's they kind of educated us with that, and they showed us, just how horrific it was, and
Yeah.
it was kind of alluded to, but not mentioned,
Yes.
to kind of prepare us to what was coming down the line. Okay, Councilmember Mann?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Fish. Yeah, I just want to report back to council that last Friday, as the council's liaison to Chamber of Commerce, we had the monthly Chamber of Commerce board meeting. What was discussed was regarding the new agreement that we had approved at our last meeting, and the board members that were present are very excited about this coming year, primarily because of some of the new things that they will be doing as part of the scope of services that we agreed. So they've already begun some discussions on how to implement that and how to address some of the specific items, such as the one part in the scope regarding increasing membership. So they're at least this I got a good feeling from it, because they seemed like a fire was lit under them. So in a good way. And what I had also sort of reaffirmed with the board is to kind of strengthen my role as both a liaison and to the chamber board, to help bring them more information as to how they can be a more active participant in some of the city-related issues. So from our discussions, they seem to be particularly interested in some items that we may be discussing in the future, such as the Las Tunas beautification concepts that was last discussed last December. We also have a downtown parking study that will be presented to the Facilities Public Works Standing Committee that Councilmember you and I belong to at the end of this month. So one of their suggestions, which I guess I will discuss separately with Mr. Cook, is they would like to see if it's possible to have the city do a presentation at their board meeting on some of these items. And then in their capacity as the board, provide feedback so that they can be active and aware of what some of those issues are. And considering their role as the chamber in our city, it would behoove of us to try to improve that relationship and be active in getting that feedback. So I pledge to help facilitate and make that happen. So it was a very productive meeting, and I will continue to do my best to report back on items from the chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Strickland?
I just have a question, and maybe Mr. Murphy can help with that, since you were our planning attorney for quite some time. But I went to the city of South Pasadena to find out about putting an ADU behind my property, and I was very surprised to find out that you have to have a minimum lot size of 12,262 square feet, I believe. And I could not recall what ours was, and so I called the city, and we're 6,000, minimum 6,000 square feet. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Greg, did the state give like minimums, or how? I was just curious when I heard that. I'm thinking, we only require half the lot size, and they require, double. It just made me think that maybe at some time, I know we looked at ADUs and we looked at reducing the size from 1,200 square feet to 800 square feet, but we didn't discuss maybe increasing the minimum size of a lot. And I just thought if that was something we were interested in. I'm just thinking that at 6,000 square feet, because my lot is about 6,200 square feet, and if I would put an ADU behind it, it makes that property very, very dense and very impactful on my neighbors' properties. I have like an 11,000 square foot lot in South Pasadena, and I can't put an ADU on there, but the lots adjacent to me have very large lots in South Pasadena also, and so it would be less impactful. So I'm just wondering, how did we come to that number of 6,000 square feet?
I can't say that I know exactly how we came to that number in Temple City. I can say that the state of California leaves the lot size at which is eligible for an ADU up to the local jurisdiction.
Okay.
I can also say that all of the guidance we had was to be reasonable in what you required, and that in conversations with the Department of Housing and Community Development on behalf of other clients, not Temple City, but other clients, I have been told more than once that if cities and counties, but specifically cities, are too strict in their application of the ADU law, HCD will simply go back and get the law rewritten to take more of our discretion away and require us to accept more in the way of ADUs. So certainly that's something we could bring back if the council thinks that you'd like to maybe see a survey of lot sizes in other local jurisdictions and see where we fit. But as I've said, one of the issues that we looked at was application of certain fees to accessory dwelling units, something not particularly covered by the law. And we were urged by HCD to waive as many fees as we could, because if we apply too many fees and ADUs cannot be built, then HCD will simply go get the law changed by the legislature to allow more ADUs to be built.
Okay.
So a 12,000 square foot minimum lot size seems to me to be the kind of thing that might trigger them, but certainly we can look into what would be reasonable for the city of Temple
Right.
City and be
I'm
happy
just-
to work with staff.
Right, I'm thinking, because I was thinking, well, there's similar population. They're a little bit, they're smaller, but similar, and some of the lot sizes vary, like ours do, and some are very deep but narrow. And I thought maybe reasonable might be a little bit bigger, like maybe 8,000 square feet. But I just thought it was something maybe we could take a look at, because I never really understood, so thank you for clarifying that, what that process was. And of course, we don't want to be so restrictive, but I also am thinking if people who have 6,000 square feet lots put an ADU behind them, I mean, it's so dense and so close that maybe it would be a good thing just to explore it.
Sure, and one of the things, just sort of as, not to minimize the concern, because it's a very real concern, but Temple City's ordinance also has floor area ratio and lot coverage requirements. So if someone is sitting at a small 6,000, 6,200 square foot lot, it is most likely that they would have to have that the ADU would be sort of carved out of the existing residence or would be placed in the existing garage, because they simply couldn't meet the requirement for a certain amount of open square footage, uncovered square footage on the lot if they added another structure.
I see.
So there are multiple ways of hitting that, but I do think that's worth us taking a look at, and I'll work with Mr. Cook and his staff to bring something back to you.
Thank you.
But I think the question really is, as a council, whether, I think when you bring this item back, we should at least look at whether the council wants to change the current ADU laws within the city. How happy or unhappy, or maybe start with bring back analysis, and because we have a few built, so we can look at the ones that we could, whether we see that being an issue or not. 12,000 square feet lot, in my opinion, is a conscious effort to stop them.
Yes.
And I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves, whether or not we truly wanted that to happen in Temple City.
Right.
I remember way back when, gosh, over 10, 15 years ago, when I was still on the Plan Commission, we already have the ADU laws. At the time anyways, the general consensus was, we will make it as difficult as it is so that people can't build it. So one of the requirements we have is that you have to have a garage for the ADU.
Right.
I mean, that pretty
And then the
much
state
rule out
said,
anybody,
yeah.
and later on we have morphed.
Right.
So I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves, is are we happy with what we have currently?
But I think the key is what Mr. Murphy said, that it's reasonable. So reasonable is probably somewhere between 6,000 and 12,000 square feet, what, in my mind,
Right.
with a city that's, so I think it's just probably wise to explore it. So, I mean, even with, I don't know, people seem to be so creative with, getting around things, but if we could just look at it. But no, I understand, and I don't want to make it difficult. I mean, I was like, well, I think I could do this in my own backyard, and I can't do it here in South Pasadena. And she said, well, you can talk to the council. I just smiled, but yeah, so anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing? Okay, I have just a couple of things. Let's see. Just wanted to let everybody know that Contract Cities, of course you probably know, I am on the executive board, and one of the things that the executive board is doing is with our monthly meetings is we are going to showcase all of the cities that our executive board members are from. So 2 weeks ago, we showcased Temple City. We had a very nice dinner at Bistro Na, and it was very exciting. Everyone was very excited about it, very impressed with our little town. So I was very proud, and our city manager dropped by to say hello, and it was very nice. So yeah, it was very nice. So very happy about that. And then of course our last concert is tomorrow night, and then the last thing is Relay for Life, October 12th, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. City Park. If you have any questions, you can contact me at my email address, or call City Hall and I can return your call. We're looking for members, we're looking for donations, and we would love to have you just come by, even just to enjoy the day. We have entertainment, we have food, so thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open public comments. Close public comments. and we will go ahead and adjourn.